Welcome to the Sports Porch, Philadelphia fans.
Welcome.
We are live all across social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter. It's amazing. It's amazing, Schwaber.
What's that? Is that another Schwar bomb that just went off?
And thank you, of course, for listening to the Sports Porch Philadelphia podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, Spotify, or anywhere you get your friggin' podcast. Yes, that's right. And hey, we're going to jump right into it right now. I'm going to put this up if you're watching us. Again, please subscribe to the podcast. Leave us a review. You can visit us on theporcheslive.com and you click the only tab that matters. Which one is that, Schwab?
The Philadelphia tab.
That's right. The only one that matters. Yes. And but the Phils are on a tear.
Yep.
They're on a tear. 13 out of 15. They're they're 38 and 34. They're in third place, and as a reminder, you can always catch the Phillies report before or after, if you like.
Yes,
every series that the Phillies play. Yes.
Every series, we bring it to you. We let you know when is the latest Schwar bomb going off.
Do you have that info ahead of time?
Huh? Maybe I do.
Yeah, well, that would help for my FanDuel addiction.
Maybe I do. It helps when he's leading off.
Drop it. Right? Yeah, it does.
Right.
It does. That's what I want to talk to you about. Seriously. Yes. Let's get into this a little bit. Okay. Let's go to Schwarber real quick.
Yep.
Because I was the guy in the beginning of this whole thing who said, Schwarber's batting 173, blah, blah. That sucks. And you were the guy that said the Schwar bomb is coming. Just wait for June. And then before the show started, you rattled off a couple names.
Right.
And, he's got a better on base percentage than Anthony Santander and the Orioles, who has a much higher average and all that kind of stuff.
That's the thing. So, if you're just looking at kind of like the old time baseball stats, and you see a guy who's hitting 187, you're thinking there's no way he should be a leadoff hitter.
Well, that's where I was coming from.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're also thinking home run hitter, there's no way he should be a leadoff hitter.
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
Right.
Yep. I was also thinking about girth and physical appearance.
Right. So, the bottom line is that that's what we were led to believe growing up. But, a little while back, the Oakland A's actually had changed that a little bit, going with their Moneyball philosophy of all that really matters is, do guys get on base, right?
Yeah, you're right. You're right about that.
So it's on base percentage, and Schwarber's on base percentage. It's not like it's like amazing or anything, but it's 332.
Yeah, which is pretty good.
And
that's pretty good,
okay.
Especially considering what his average is.
Right. And so what's interesting is I looked and I saw online, that player from the Orioles, Santander.
That's how you say it.
That you mentioned.
Yep.
That guy is hitting 262. He's got 10 home runs, 20 doubles, and a triple. He's got, I think, about 40 RBIs.
40, right.
And 26 walks. It's not like he never walks.
Right.
And his on base is 331.
Right.
And it really, it's because Schwarber walks a lot. He's got 53 walks on the year.
Yeah.
And so, the way I always looked at it is, well, for whatever reason, Kyle Schwarber enjoys leading off. He feels most comfortable there. And he's hit in this last series, he hit 2 leadoff home runs. That gives him 24 leadoff home runs for his career. And, I'm a big believer in whenever you're playing with the lead, it really takes the pressure off of your pitching.
Right.
And the rest of the hitters.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of obvious.
Right.
That's like baseball gospel.
Right. And even if he doesn't, hit one in the first inning, if he hits one the second time up, which might be the third inning or the fourth inning,
right?
That might be before the other team has scored.
Well, I think the whole point is to get him as many at bats as possible.
Right. Exactly. And also, how many times do you sit there at the end of the game, and you're like, oh, hopefully in the ninth we can turn the lineup over to the leadoff guy, right? And usually when you're having that conversation, it's because we want somebody to hit a home run.
Yeah.
Right. And he's their top home run hitter by far. I mean, I think Castellanos has 9.
I believe you're right. Yeah.
And they were talking a little bit about Harper today.
No, Castellanos has 8. Real Muto has 8, and then 7, Turner, blah, blah. Anyway, go ahead.
So, they're talking a little bit about, Bryce Harper, because what's going on with him, because he only has 3 home runs. Apparently, with the Tommy John, it is going to take some time to get more strength back into that arm.
Yeah, well, I mean, he actually came back early.
Yeah, he came back early.
Right.
And, hey, we'll take hitting 300 at the same time.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
He's hitting like 295 or 299 or 300 or something like that. So
296.
Yeah. So
you're always kind of like hovering around the number.
Right.
Yeah.
So he's in a pretty good spot. At least average wise. I mean, he's getting game winning hits, but they're singles.
Right.
But that's okay. So hopefully maybe down the stretch run, his power comes back a little bit. But, until that happens, Schwarber is your guy for the long ball.
Yeah.
So,
So at what point do they move Schwarber back down the lineup?
I think they won't now.
You don't think so?
No, it's over now.
Yeah.
Because of, he's got 7 home runs in June.
More than the entire Pirates team.
Probably.
It could be close.
Yeah. And then he's just been on fire since he's been back in the leadoff. Did
he bat? I know we had this conversation off air a couple times. He has bat leadoff before, but did he bat leadoff a lot last year after Topper took over?
Yeah, he batted lead off almost all last year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and the year before he did for the Cubs, I believe it was.
So, so this isn't something new.
No, it's not something new.
It's just not normal to see a guy with his power.
Right. It's just an
girth.
It's an unconventional leadoff hitter.
Yes, unconventional.
Is what it is.
Yeah. So I mean, I think it's pretty impressive that they made that move, and it definitely pays dividends. And also as the leadoff hitter, as the first hitter of the game, walking a lot means that he's patient at the plate. So he draws pitches to see pitches. And also you get usually pretty good pitches leading off.
Right.
Because they don't want to walk you.
Yeah.
Although walking him doesn't mean a guaranteed steal,
no.
Other leadoff.
But you don't want to walk the leadoff hitter. And I think the other thing that it does is it immediately puts pressure on the starting pitcher. It's like, their eyes got to light up a little bit, like, oh, Kyle Schwarber's up. I don't want to give up a leadoff home run.
Right. Right. So they pitch around him, kind of, or they try to nibble. Yeah.
Right. Or it might be just the fact that it's the first batter, and they try to nibble, they might miss.
Right.
They're not in the flow of the game.
Right.
But he's also had, even though he's had, I know he's had at least 3 leadoff homers this year. He's also, just since he's been put up there, he's walked quite a bit. He's had a number of like multiple walk games.
Right.
And it was really nice to see he had a 3-hit game the other day.
Yeah.
Which, when 2 of them are not home runs, that's kind of unusual.
Where is he? I'm gonna look this stat up because I'm just curious. Okay, he's got 41 RBIs too. So the only guy that has more than him is Nick Castellanos. So he's also knocking him in. He does have 89 strikeouts, which is
not great.
You can attribute to his 187 average too. But yeah, I think
one thing that's kind of interesting. They were talking about today. He's got something like the 5th best ever at bats to home run ratio.
Yeah.
Like ever.
Huh.
Like of any player ever.
That's interesting.
It was interesting.
And take a little deeper dive into Kyle Schwarber.
Yeah. So one of the things they were talking about today is if you had one guy to come up and you needed a home run between Kyle Schwarber and Ryan Howard, who would you pick?
Well, of course, that's a Phillies question.
Yeah.
Who would you pick?
Most people pick Ryan Howard.
Yeah.
I think you got to pick Ryan Howard, at least for the longevity of what he did.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like Kyle Schwarber's only hit, over 45 home runs once. And,
that was last year.
Yeah. Ryan Howard in the prime of his career did like 4 or 5 years in a row.
Yeah. Prior to that, in 2019, he hit 38.
Yeah.
But, and he played 155 games. Since then, he's been kind of injured or in between teams.
What's interesting is he joined the Phillies last year. Okay, so he's been with the Phillies for a year and a couple months, including postseason.
Right.
Since he started with us in the 2022 season, he has 72 home runs as a Philly.
Yeah, that's not bad.
it's pretty good.
I'm looking for the stat: home runs per 9 innings. Would that be an advanced? Yeah, walks per Ks, at bats. Well, he has his career. It's 13.9 at bats per home run. So that's like, at least every 3 to 4 games he's going to hit a home run.
Right.
So that puts you on pace for 40.
Right.
A year.
I mean, I'm not sure where they found the stat, so it could be hard to find.
They probably made it up like most of us do, but who knows? Who knows?
Well, anyway, I think another thing we should talk about is the pitching.
Absolutely, because you are not a fan right now of Aaron Nola.
I'm not.
But
the pitching overall, the starting pitching in particular, has been number one in the month of June.
Yeah. And you had sent me a text earlier today, first in ERA, first in FIP, which we had to figure out. And we made a crude comment about
right. Fielding percentage, for those of you want to
know. First in whip, first in WAR, first in home runs per 9, first in batting average against, and an ERA of 2.54 in June. Now, admittedly, we still have 11 days left to go, but
true. And I think the next closest team was like 3.25.
Yeah, 3.25. You got it. Yeah. Yeah. So
basically what's happening is you've got Wheeler, Taijuan Walker, and Ranger Suarez are basically going out every single game and giving up 0 or 1 run, and usually going about 7 innings.
Right.
Nola is Nola. Most Phillies fans, I think, are at the point where we're just like so fed up with him, just because the bottom line is there's just so much to dislike. I mean, the bottom line, he's got so much freaking talent. It's ridiculous. This guy will go out there and, at one point this year, he had a no-hitter, I think, going into the 8th inning, we've seen him, maybe I don't know. I feel like he's had games where he's had between 12 and 15 strikeouts. I know he had at least one 12 game this year, strikeout game.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he can really kill teams. And he really came up big at the end of last season and at the beginning of the playoffs.
He had 12 Ks against Detroit on June 5th.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just so frustrating. Here's the frustrating thing. The frustrating thing is he is plagued by the big inning. And the way the big innings happen is he's like a totally different pitcher from the stretch when someone's on base versus nobody on base. Nobody's on base. He just winds back and takes his time and throws the ball in there. When somebody's on base, he's very concerned about them being on base. He doesn't like pitching out of the stretch. He nibbles, and he ultimately ends up giving up a home run.
Right.
I mean, he's given up 15 home runs this year.
Right.
That's insanity. Right. I mean, 15 home runs. And I think it's like 13 games in a row that he's given up a home run.
Yeah, I don't see that here, but 15 home runs, definitely.
I mean, it's
only 24 walks versus where his Ks here, 93 Ks. So,
but it's like this is the kind of thing that happens. Like, when I can't remember this, I think it was the Diamondback series that he was pitching, and of course he gets through 3 innings and nobody gets a hit. Okay.
Right.
Phillies get off to like a 3-0 lead. So he should be calm as can be.
Right.
Then what happens? Somebody gets a single and now all of a sudden he can't pitch, walk somebody's nibbling, somebody gets an infield single or something. And now it's bases loaded. And then, there's 1 out maybe. And then it's a 3-2 count. And I'm like,
wheels are coming off.
I'm like, here it goes.
Yeah.
he can't throw a ball, so it's coming right over the plate, and it's going to be gone. And sure enough, it was.
Yeah.
Sure enough, it was opposite field shot.
Yeah. Yeah.
For some dude, it's you can see the home runs coming. And that's the thing. That's the thing that's just so frustrating about him is we keep spotting him these leads. He's given up a 3-0 lead, a 5-0 lead this year. No lead is safe with Aaron Nola on the mound.
Right.
It can be gone in a blink.
So what do you think his problem is? I mean, if you were to guess, is it psychological?
Yeah,
is it mechanical? What is it?
Well, I think number one, I think that it is mental, for sure. And number two, I think that he is just not, the thing is that he's, even though he does throw 94 pretty regularly, he'll get up to 96 if he's like really gearing up, maybe 97 one time a game or something like that.
Right.
But basically he throws 94. So the way that he gets a lot of people out is he gets a lot of people out with his junk balls.
Right.
Right.
I get a lot of people out with my junk too.
Thanks for sharing. So
this is not a G-rated show, people.
Right.
Not a G-rated show.
So, look, if he's painting the corners and the refs are giving it to him,
right,
then it's like he's unstoppable.
They have refs in baseball? I thought they had umpires.
Umpires,
yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Same
refs, umpires,
same,
whatever. Official. The
right,
official.
Right.
I'm in one of those moods today, Schwaber. I'm just telling you.
I see that. So, the bottom line is that it seems to me these days, how they have that little box that tells you where if it's a strike or a ball.
Yep. I hate that thing.
I see. I kind of like it.
I know.
But to be honest, I think you've got a better shot with the slightly high being called a strike or the slightly low being called a strike than you do on the corners.
I don't know, man. I've seen it all over the map.
Have you?
Yeah. But, I don't like. Anyway, go ahead. Yeah. Finish up on Nola. Right.
Yeah. If he's not hitting those spots, the bottom line is like I was listening to Larry Anderson, who was a former Philly, and he's a broadcaster now.
Right.
And
I remember Larry Anderson.
Yeah.
Mediocre player.
He's a little better than mediocre. But
I love the defensiveness.
But he's basically saying like, look, they're basically telling their hitters like work a long count because he's going to throw you junk and if he's not getting calls, all you got to do is work a long count.
Just wait.
And then he's going to groove a 94 mile per hour fastball in the zone to you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if he's not realizing that, like, I'm sorry, but you've got to be more aggressive early in the count.
Yeah.
You got it.
Well, I mean, that's baseball gospel too. My dad was a college pitcher and then a coach for me. And now things have changed in 30, 40 years, but the basics of the game remain the same. I mean, you want to try to throw the first pitch for a strike.
Right. Because
most batters are told to take the first pitch.
Right.
And immediately they're back on their heels. So I see a lot of that. What here's the reason that I don't like that box. Let's get to the little box.
Sure.
Okay. If they go, and it's an if, and I know a lot of places, a lot of sports outlets, journalists, people that follow the game, they're speculating that 2 to 3 years from now, you'll see. I love how they call it robotic umpires, as if it's going to be from like the movie iRobot.
Right.
You are in danger. You are in danger. But that box, to me, the human element of having that umpire back there. First of all, when you put that box up there and you say religiously that's the strike zone, which is how they're kind of painting it,
right.
For pardon the pun, how they're kind of painting it, you expose how ruthlessly human the umpires are, because I watch a lot of baseball and they miss a ton of calls.
They do,
that are close.
Yeah.
But to me, they're close enough. Okay. That robot, as soon as you pull that the human out of that and you put that robot box in there, you're going to see pitchers' ERAs go through the roof, because they are just absolutely, you can't see that box. What are they going to do? Put a little laser hologram of the box? I mean, when you have a catcher and the hitter and the umpire, I know it's not a perfect frame, but you've kind of got an idea. You've got a 3D version of two guys next to each other. One guy, and the umpire calls it. And in your mind as a pitcher, in the past, you would establish a strike zone. It was almost like the pitcher, the catcher, and the ump were working together, saying, "Okay, this is where we're going to focus. This is the strike zone." When you put that box in there, man, these guys, I'm telling you, ERAs are going to go through the roof because they're not going to know where to throw it other than I've got to throw it somewhere in the middle, and it's going to be an adjustment, and they're going to be leaving balls. They're going to be hanging curves. They're going to be leaving sliders. They're going to be pitching it right down the middle. Yeah, I'm just telling you, I personally, and I know that, look, if I'm wrong, only time will tell, and I'm happy to be wrong.
You will be wrong,
but I more often than not.
Yes.
But I personally think that will change the game in not a good way. That's just me.
Or what you could say is if everybody wants more offense, it's going to change the game in a positive way.
No, but that's the thing. If all of a sudden there's more offense, like, do you really want to see more NFL scores in Major League Baseball?
Oh, I wouldn't mind it. I mean,
really?
I kind of like
you're like a home run junkie. You're like a run scoring junkie.
Yeah, I like a 10-7 game.
No, I can't stand that shit. No, then
it
takes defense and pitching completely out of the game.
No, it doesn't.
They might as well put the pitching machine
in. No, it doesn't. But it's when you're a really good team, you can score all those runs, but then like once or twice a week, your number one or your number two starter comes out and pitches a gem.
Look, I'm watching. I watch Pirates baseball more than I watch Phillies baseball,
because it's a crime.
Well, I do that.
They should put you in jail for that. I mean, you might even consider yourself already in jail.
Actually, that part of it is starting to get closer and closer to the truth. But my point is, I'm watching this kid pitching for the Pirates, Mitch Keller. And he is
could be a good trade deadline pickup.
He might be, yeah. But he's turning into a pretty good pitcher. Okay, he really is.
Yeah,
he nibbles the corners really well.
Wouldn't it be nice if somebody could give him a run once in a while?
Yes. But what I'm saying is, if you put that box in there, he's not going to be nibbling those corners, because he's not nibbling the corners and throwing those pitches that have that late movement that run on you based on a box. He's doing it based on the hitter. And, it's just, I think technology is great for sports. I think replay, now that they've kind of brought it to the major league level, they haven't perfected it, but they've gotten pretty close. It happens pretty fast. The NFL's experimented with it for years, and they've tinkered with it. I think things like that can overturn obviously egregious errors are good.
Yeah.
But I think if you bring too much of that technology into a sport that is based on human interaction, you risk the chance of turning it into a video game. And I just don't like that idea. I personally think they should stick to the umps on the field. And then what you do is you use that box and the film from the game to continuously train the umpires, but leaving that human element in there. I mean, who's going to run out and argue balls and strikes against a robot and get thrown out and provide entertainment? No one.
Well, that's the whole point.
No one.
That we don't have to do that anymore.
No, but it's been part of baseball for 120 years.
Well, they can still run out and argue when somebody's called out at the plate or third base.
Listen,
or whatever.
I'm telling you, they go too far. They're going to put sensors in the ball, sensors on the plate, and they're not going to need umpires. You could put a sensor in the foul line right now and a sensor in the ball. You could do it. And then there will never be any question whether or not it's a foul or a foul or a fair ball. There will never be any question if that ball.
There could be a question, because if it goes over the base but lands foul, it's fair.
Yeah. Okay. So fine, but I'm.
Gotcha.
All right. Well, we're getting way too much into that. Well, what we should do is we should have a show where we argue about this stuff in all sports.
Right. Somebody from New York just gave us the peace sign.
Yeah, they did. They did that. Actually, that happened a little while ago. So thank you, New York. Peace to you as well, even though we're
Phillies will be taking on the Mets not too far away.
Well, and that's where we're going to go next. Let's look at the schedule coming up.
three with the Braves at home, and then 3 with the Mets at home.
Yep, I'm pulling it up right now. So
divisional games.
Yeah, we have got now the Phillies are what, 38 and 34, right?
Yep.
So we've got 3. Well, you've got what, a 6-game homestand, Atlanta, and then the Mets coming into town. You got to love those Phillies Mets games. They're probably a lot of fun. Then you go out of town to Chicago for 3. Then you're back home versus the Nats, and then to Tampa Bay, and finish up with Miami going into the All-Star break, I believe. Not the easiest schedule. I mean,
no.
Atlanta, obviously, division games against the best team. New York, division game, hated rival. Chicago, that's going to have wild card implications. I watched the Chicago series where they
seem pretty good.
Well, I'll tell you, they're the team that I think is really underperforming. And they got Cody Bellinger back, and they got their pitcher Steele back, and they've got a good offense. And watch out for the Cubs. I'm not saying they're going to win the World Series, but when it comes to the wild card, they're going to be in the mix. That's my opinion.
Sure.
The Senators are not having a great year. I always say the Senators. My dad used to be a Senators fan when he was younger. Yeah, he was born in D.C. So the Nats, Tampa Bay, obviously, that's a big series. How do you feel about the rest of this going into the All-Star break? Where do you think they should end up? I mean, going 500 the rest of the way to stay 4 games over, is that acceptable to you?
I mean, look, it's not going to surprise me if that's what they do.
Right.
Look, the Phillies, for whatever reason, they, like a lot of teams, sometimes they play better against the good teams and not as good against the bad teams.
Yeah.
We split 2 of 2 with Atlanta earlier in the year. We could have won 3 of 4 or even swept them, but then we got swept by the Mets. So
right,
it wouldn't shock me if like the Phils come out and win 2 of 3 from Atlanta, but then they lose 2 of 3 to the Mets.
Right.
So I can see that kind of stuff happening. Usually if a team's pretty bad, they might sweep them, like they might sweep the Nats. But the Marlins will probably play them tough. It's hard to say. I mean, the reality is that they've gone 13-2 and they've beaten some good teams. They won a series against the Arizona Diamondbacks, who are 45-20 when they
3
played
or 4.
them.
Right.
They won a series against the Dodgers. So they've won against some decent teams. But it's the bottom line is you can only play at that level for so long, maybe before you get on another little tear. You know what I mean? So it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, I would be really pleased if they maybe went 4 games over 500 and, they were at the All-Star break 8 games over 500. They'd probably be in a playoff spot if that's the case. Right now, they're 1 game out of a wild card spot.
Right.
So, I mean, I would say what would be the only thing that would be unacceptable would be being behind the 3rd wild card by 3 or more games.
Right.
That would be unacceptable.
Right.
Yeah. Anything where they're in a playoff spot is acceptable. If they're 1 behind, okay. Yeah. We'll deal with it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll see. What about the trade deadline? What do you think they need to add?
Well, there's a lot of talk about they could add 1 more big bat, potentially one from the right-handed side. There's a lot of talk about possibly Goldschmidt as the
that would be interesting
as the
the Cardinals are we've got them on the telly behind us right now.
Right. So there's a lot of talk about Goldschmidt, but then there's also a lot of talk about do you want 1 more starter? Because the 5th starter spot's been a disaster.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'd like both really, but
wouldn't we all?
The problem though is that I guess I could part with Griff McGarry, who's like the number 3 pitching prospect of the Phillies. And I know they're not going to get rid of Andrew Painter because they want him to probably be the fifth starter in the second half. But I don't want to get rid of Mick Abel, who is, the number 2 guy in the system. And he is, a first round draft pick. He was, probably picked somewhere between 2 and 7 or something like that.
Right.
And, before we got Andrew Painter and before the world realized just how good Andrew Painter was, Mick Abel is going to be the next big thing. And he's having a really good year in the minors right now. And I don't want to give that guy up for like a year and a half of Goldschmidt.
Right.
You know what I mean? Now, if it gives you a title,
that's the problem.
If it gives you a title, I'd say great. But at the same time, let's be realistic here. I mean, a title is not that easy at all. Just because they made the World Series last year, all it really proves is, hey, they've got a good enough lineup and they've got good enough pitching that if they're hot, they could go all the way.
Right.
However, no matter what, there's going to be 2 to 4 teams in the playoffs that are better than them, that have better records, and have better teams. Like the Braves will be better. There's no way around it.
Well, regular season wise. Yeah.
Probably the Dodgers will be better.
Yeah. The playoffs are a different season though. What I see when I look at the Phillies right now, I don't really think that they need, and I emphasize the word need, to add anything. I think what they need is their pitching, their starting pitching, which is good, to be as good as it's supposed to be.
Right. But it's also not going to be number 1 every month.
Of course not. But they need it to be as good as it's supposed to be.
Right.
So like Nola has to settle down and string some positive games together and not be this
home run machine.
Right. And what's his name? Harper, he just needs to get back to form.
Right.
And of course the physical limitations, and he will. But it looks to me like they're finally starting to kind of put together the idea of, hey, we can make a run at this again. We've got all the pieces in place.
Yeah.
And you were complaining earlier in the year that Topper was making some kind of boneheaded decisions. Well, sometimes it takes managers a little while to feel their way through how's the team going to react this year.
Yeah, maybe so.
So I don't think they need a whole lot. I think they just need to play ball the right way.
Yeah, and he hasn't made many bad decisions, obviously, in the last 15 games.
Yeah. Right.
It's been pretty good.
As opposed to the other side of the state. So, but if you want to catch that, you can catch that on the next show. So, okay, my man, let's move on here. You sent me a text. I'm just going to put this up here. The Grand Schwabini speaks. And I'm not sure why there we go. The Grand Schwabini speaks on the Eagles. Pro Football Focus tweeted out today that the Philadelphia Eagles have the number 1 offensive line and the number 1 defensive line. So they're best in the trenches in the NFL. And that sparked the whole debate. And I just want to read some of these replies. Of course, Pickensburg from Pittsburgh said, "This is sad."
Well, I think he means this is sad, meaning why not us?
He could, but
that's what
knowing Steelers fans, it could be either way. But yes, I think you're right. Well, right now, there's no doubt. I mean, there's no doubt. Another response to that tweet: What? The trenches in Siberia? No one is there. The D line is not number 1. Ask Mahomes. Gotta love that one. I want to get something that's not completely offensive. The best team in the league when the refs don't cheat us. Super Bowl. Their defensive line was dog poop when it mattered most. Some idiot here keeps saying the Lions offensive line is better. I mean, it's like, where's Pat on track when we need him? Because that would be something he would say.
Well, I would say, just to put my 2 cents in,
that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I would definitely say the Eagles offensive line is the best.
But only 2 cents, not 3. Okay.
Yes, I will not put in a extra penny.
Even with the loss of Siamalu?
Yes.
He wasn't. Was he a starter?
He was
a starter. Yeah.
Now, here's the thing. Like, I think Siamalu is a pretty good player. You know, and for what it's worth, Jason Kelsey thinks he's a pretty good player, says he's like a very smart player.
Right.
However, you also do have to realize that Sayamalo spent his entire career between 3 possible first ballot Hall of Famers.
Right.
I mean, Jason Kelsey and Jason Peters.
Right.
And Jason Kelsey and Lane Johnson.
Right.
So, you know, they might make up for some of his shortcomings.
Could.
So, but anyway, so, you know, really what you've got Kelsey is usually considered either the best or second best center in the league. You got Lane Johnson, who's usually thought of as the best right tackle in the league. You've got Landon Dickerson, who made the Pro Bowl at left guard last year. You got Jordan Mailata, who I'm looking at a lot of like reviews. They basically feel like he's like the 5th or 6th best left tackle in the league. He's certainly, like, honestly, I thought he could have been a Pro Bowl player last year.
Right.
And, you know, now because Sayamalo's gone, you're probably going to have put in there Cam Jurgens, who was our 2nd round pick last year, who's expected to, you know, take over when Kelsey retires at center.
Right.
But he's also in college played guard.
Right.
You know, so, you know, and he played some snaps last year. And, you know, when a couple guys got injured and he looked pretty good in there. So I think really, I feel very strongly the offensive line is good. Now, the defensive line, I do feel like they're giving it a little bit of a, maybe a little bit of a name recognition push, simply because, okay, you know, on the ends, you got Brandon Graham, who's very good. I mean, 11 sacks last year, but he is older,
right?
35, right? You got Sweat on the other side, who is good. I mean, 11 sacks,
right?
You know, he's like a 3rd-year player. You got Fletcher Cox. You know, look,
same thing.
Same thing.
Right.
You know, 7 sacks for a defensive tackle, pretty good.
A little older,
but a little older. And then I think the main part of the name recognition really is the 2 young guys. You know, Jordan Davis and
Jalen Carter.
Jalen Carter. I think that they're expecting these 2 to dominate in the middle,
right?
And to be honest, we really don't know just yet. We really don't know. Now, last year, Jordan Davis was playing really well up until the point where he got hurt.
Yeah, when I watched him play last year in the beginning of the year, I thought he was a beast. Yeah.
So, I mean, I think he's going to turn out to be pretty good.
Yeah.
And I expect Jalen Carter will too, but you know, you never know until you see them play.
Right.
So, and they do have some decent depth, you know.
Didn't they led the league in sacks last year?
Yeah,
that's part of it.
Sacks.
Even with Hargrave gone,
right?
They're figuring that somebody's going to pick up, and even if they were 2nd in the league, you know,
right.
So
well, they also, and here's the other thing too. You know, his actual position is linebacker, but if I don't know, maybe they're considering Hassan Reddick on the defensive line.
Probably.
You know,
well, there's a murky area now between edge rusher and defensive end,
because he's an edge rusher.
Right.
When he lines up as a defensive end, you know, he was 2nd in the league with 16 sacks last year.
Right.
So you know, he might be included in that mix too.
Right. I think so.
So, I mean, yeah, is it like probably like top 7? I'd say, yeah, but you know, I don't know that it's number 1. I think we really have to see how the young guys play and if the old guys still are playing at a high level.
Well, they and you know what Pro Football Focus does, like everybody does, ESPN, all of them. They got to put these rankings out because they got to keep people talking about it. And of course, we're going to keep talking about it.
Exactly. I mean, and for example, you know, like I saw there was the rankings for the cornerbacks, and they had Darius Slay as the 3rd best cornerback in the league.
Right.
And like, I totally disagree with that.
Right.
I mean, he's good, but I don't think he's that good.
Right.
I mean, like, I think he might be like top 10, maybe top 15.
Right.
But I don't think he's that good. Meanwhile, like James Bradbury, who led the league in, what was it like
pass defenses?
not pass defenses. He led the league in something like quarterback rating when thrown.
Oh yeah, okay,
something
QBR
like
against, right?
Yeah, like honestly, he's really the better cornerback.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have the benefit of watching
right.
probably every play,
right? Whereas, but let's face it. I mean, one of the things about Slay is he does make some big plays.
Yeah.
And he dances in the end zone. So,
right. Well, and he's got a great name.
Right.
That helps.
He does.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, OTAs are over, right?
Yeah.
So we're just kind of waiting for camp to start.
Right.
Or is it mini camp?
No, I think I think the next thing is camp.
Yeah. I hate all the names they call these things. It's like, like call it camp, start camp. You know, I mean, just, you're practicing, it's camp. But it's going to be interesting to see. And I don't think you can really rank that until, well, I mean, if you were to ask me my opinion, definitely the Eagles defensive line is one of the better lines in the league. If you include the linebacking core, I like to look at things from a holistic point of view.
Right.
It's more about the whole defense, because one side of it helps the other. If you've got a great line, it's going to make your secondary better. Right. Okay. Right. If you've got great linebackers that can fill gaps and stop the run, it's going to make your secondary better. It's going to keep, so I think they definitely are going to, they have the makings of a top 5 defense in the NFL, no doubt about it. And with the offense that they're putting on the board, which is basically the return of what they had last year, and maybe the addition of a running back that is maybe a little better than Miles Sanders, maybe not. You would expect them to be in pretty good shape.
But I'll tell you what, though. I mean, speaking on defense, I sometimes wonder, though, if it really even matters that much anymore. Now, let me back up on that.
Is this going to be like a baseball thing?
No. Well, a little bit, maybe. I mean, it certainly matters during the regular season.
Right.
When you're playing a team that's not good, if you have a good defense and your offense sort of sputters, you can still win the game.
Right.
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 But like when you're talking about
high-powered offenses,
Final Four.
Yeah.
Like look at that. Look at the last 2 Super Bowls the Eagles have been in.
Yeah.
I mean, what was it like? The Eagles scored like 40 points in one and 35 in another, and so did their opponents.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
it's like
go all the way back to the early 2000s when Baltimore beat the Giants. What was the score? Like 10-9 in the Super Bowl or something.
Right.
I know I'm wrong on the score, but it really was that close. And honestly, that was probably one, other than the Shannon Sharp catch and run, that was one of the worst Super Bowls I've ever watched in my life. Of course, the fact that Kerry Collins and Trent Dilfer were the quarterbacks probably made all the difference in the world. Steve always loves to chime in. He's probably in the driveway outside of our studio right now.
Yeah.
Tough scheduling for birds. Yeah. Well,
the only problem about that is it's also tough for everyone who's playing them.
That's true. Classic Philly response. I like that. that. So, but I'm getting excited because our prime time is the NFL. Right now, the only sport going is baseball. The only one of the 4 major sports is baseball. And obviously, we're going to keep up to date with everything Phillies related. The NBA is over and, we're in the off season now. So the Sixers have some decisions to make. The Flyers have some decisions to make. But we're coming into mid-season now for baseball, and that's going to get exciting. But when football starts to ramp up, man,
that's when it really happens.
I think
unless you want to talk about Wyndham Clark winning the U.S. Open in men's golf.
I was just about to ask who's Wyndham Clark. As you guys could see, I am not a golf buff, and it's because I could never play golf.
It's hard.
It's very hard. It really is.
It's very hard.
And I don't understand,
It's not. I mean, if you find enjoyment in failing constantly, then it's for you.
Yeah. Well, but you could make that about every sport. You can argue that even the best hitter fails 7 out of 10 times, but I get it. Like golf is like miserable.
Right. But like, for example, if we're playing wiffle ball in the backyard, we might hit 7 home runs.
Right. Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not like if we go out and we golf, none of us are hitting 15-foot putts.
Ever. No.
No.
Well, no.
And none of us are driving it 400 yards.
No. I might drive it 40 centimeters.
Right.
I mean, I don't. And the thing is, I was good at hitting a baseball, and it was because it was moving. For some reason, I don't know. So yeah, but yeah, we'll be back next week, and your next Phillies will be after the Atlanta series.
Thursday night.
Thursday night. Okay, so as you can see on the ticker down below, you can follow the Sports Porch podcast on Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, or anywhere you get your podcasts. And of course, you want to follow us on theporcheslive.com,
theporcheslive.com.
And
click the Philadelphia tab, the only tab that matters.
I love that. And catch the Phillies report before every series on the Sports Porch Philadelphia podcast. And I think that's about it, Schwaber. What do you think?
That's it. Go Phils.
I want to thank you guys for listening. And I was going to advise you. I'm going to advise you that the best thing in life you could choose is to subscribe to the Sports Porch Philadelphia podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you get your friggin' podcasts. Leave us a review. We would love that. And other than that, I'm just going to say it right now. Go ahead, Schwaber.
Subscribe. It will be life-changing.
There you go. I am your technical director, and I am out.
And I am the Grand Schwabini saying, Go Birds!